Hi, this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. This one's going to be interesting today. This is a 1980s Penn Speedmaster. It's a reel that was made in Japan. It was only made during the 1980s. This one comes from Steve. Steve said he got this one used at the end of 1980s, so that makes sense. The reel was not very popular, and I think there hasn't been a whole lot of Penn low-profile baitcasters until they just came out with the Squall, as low-profile baitcasters are becoming popular for saltwater usage. This one wasn't designed for that. It was designed for freshwater. It's got a mag feature on it. You saw me closing a little gate here. This is kind of fun. You can oil your worm gear and your pawl without taking the whole reel apart. But we're going to take this reel apart. We're going to give it a service. I have noticed that the reel has got this gear on it, and Steve asked me how does that work in terms of the two-speed. It's a two-speed reel, and I don't know, but we're going to find out. Other than that, we've got an anti-reverse that sometimes wants to play and sometimes doesn't. We have a flipper switch, which this one's loose, he says, and that would enable you to be in flip mode or not flip mode. And then we have the traditional thumb cast kind of mode. So we're going to get started. This is exploratory, and I'm taking pictures with my video here because, quite honestly, I don't know what's going to go on. I do have, as I recommend, a schematic. Steve included one, but you can also get this schematic at the Penn Parts site. And I'm just going to kind of hope that we have enough knowledge here to kind of make our way through this one, and we'll see. So I'm going to start by trying to remove this screw, and he said it hasn't been serviced. He fished with it a couple of years, and it hadn't been serviced, and put it on the shelf for some time and tried to take it out for a few trips last year, and then just kind of wanted to see if we couldn't get it serviced and tuned up for the spring. So let's see if we can't do that for him. So while I'm taking off some of the exterior parts, I'd like to thank our first responders and essential personnel for all that they're doing to keep us safe during the pandemic. I really do appreciate the efforts of our first responders, hometown heroes, essential personnel, fire, police, EMT, all of the folks that are involved in keeping us safe and trying to restore us to health, whether it's in the hospital wards or the long-term care facilities or emergency treatment centers, vaccination centers, and so on. Thank you for all that you do. I pulled that cap off, took the 10mm screw out, can remove the handle. And again, we're kind of playing this by ear, but we're going to just take the exterior parts off. This says we have a speed shifter here. I suspect that what I'm going to find underneath here is some kind of a gear system that enables you to switch between the two speeds. It's got a 2.1. Oh, that's a low speed, it says. 2.1 and 6.1. Wow. And looks like when you back it off, that'll be the cause for the disengaging of the bigger gear. We're going to take this all off because that's how we're going to get there. Maybe this will be a clue as to what's going on underneath. So we have that wheel, and this is just what was making the noise before. That should just walk off. Sometimes easier said than done. There we go. I'm going to put that right upside down so I know that it goes that way. There's two sides on that little click mechanism, so there's a cavity on this side where the spring shows through. That faces inward on the reel. This is a good place to tell you to take pictures. I'm taking them with a video right now, but you can use your cell phone camera, use a standard digital camera, use anything you like to take those pictures. I guess our options are endless these days, and if you take those pictures, they will help you out if you get stuck. All right, so we got something of a clip here. It's kind of hard to see exactly what it is. Okay, we've had a little snap ring. I went to my pliers and I kind of inserted it on both sides, and that kind of is holding a groove there. So let's get that off. you'll see that I'm putting all my pieces and parts into a parts tray. And I'm just going to stack that snap ring right on top of that other assembly that we took off. Now we should be able to roll this back. You'll see there's a lip here that that snap ring was holding on. So I'm holding my spool. I see that the anti-reverse is not engaged at this point, so I'm going to use a handle to hold the gear sleeve on while I back the rest of this assembly off. And then underneath that we have yet another noisemaker. We have the tension washer, and then we have a gear sleeve that are all part of that main gear assembly. We have 3 side plate screws we'll take next. And this is where not knowing a reel gets to be fun, because you can really watch things fly and pop if you're not careful. I'm going to open up that door because I think that the side plate will come off independent of that door. We will see. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I think there's an award for the engineers that design low-profile bait feeders and to do something different than has been done on any other reel. Because every one of them seems to have a unique case design and a little trick to get the darn cases off. In this case, I think we have a central chassis here that should be fine. Now, I noticed on that last screw that I took off that there is a different size that was smaller than this. So that's something to pay attention to as you go about doing your reel design and build. Okay, we're going to just take this off and hopefully nothing shoots out of it. And underneath it, let's see what we got here. So we have a clutch. I guess that's what's kind of making this a dual speed. I'm kind of looking for what's driving the anti-reverse here. All right, well, we're just going to, well, that's probably what's driving the anti-reverse. So we got a piece that's fallen out of this. It's broken. I'm guessing that's the anti-reverse spring or something. And I'm going to have to just kind of line up on that. That's unfortunate if it's broken, because there's nothing there that's going to be keeping this thing proper. Okay, well, lay that off to the side for a moment. This would be the next piece that goes into the case that actually could go in here. That's how that's set up. And we have our tension. Then here's our anti-reverse. There's a washer on top of the tension cap. A washer, and then there's the first, the drag sits inside the cap. Just like that. So I'm going to nest that again to the tray. Here's our, I guess this is our speed shifter, but I'm not sure how this thing is actually working. So here's our eccentric for the anti-reverse. So I'm not sure what that green piece is yet, but this is going to nest in our anti-reverse dog. This is quite a mechanism here. So what this is telling us, I'm going to take these 2 springs and the yoke off. I guess what this is telling us is as you press down, this inner ring is going to engage and change the gear. So if you're not pressed down, the main drive is going to be this gear, and this will be floating and acting as a clutch, and as you go to put this in and press down on this, then you're going to have the other gear engaged, I think. All right, I'm going to take that dog off. pull this whole assembly off. We have our drive assembly underneath, and we have a backup here for an anti-reverse. So we have two pieces going on this anti-reverse. So I have those four little gears, they'll go in here. I have my main gear with a drag washer underneath. Sleeve gears. And this one looks like it may or may not be functional, so we'll just have to go ahead and take that apart. We want to pinch that in a little bit there. So we have a double claw on this. And we'll just come over here and lube this up. This is your yoke assembly and gear. So there's quite a bit of engineering going on in this one, and I'm still not certain. I'm not seeing it in my mind's eye here in terms of how the pieces intersect here. Put that down there. This is your yoke. This can go back on. This is all clean. Okay, now he's saying that the flipper switch, I don't see anything tensioned on this thing. When we come in, this is going to be your free spool release. Okay, and that's going to lock. Okay, I paused for a moment there just to get some of the pieces out for the reassembly of this. I was spending some time making sure that this anti-reverse dog worked, because I did feel skipped the last time. And so we can go ahead now and do some of the reassembly here. The click ratchet is on for the anti-reverse. There was a little wavy piece that went underneath here that's the trip mechanism for this. Next up then is a drag washer that goes underneath the main assembly. I'll just take that out in two pieces here just to show you. There's a main gear with a drag washer. Then there's a collar gear, that's secondary speed gear that sits inside of that. So we'll go ahead and put that on. Now, taking the time to grease the main gear while I was on that break there. Next up then is this main shaft assembly, which has the other gear on it. So let's go ahead and get some grease on that. And then that's going to drive those little gears that are sitting on my bench here that I just pulled out of the tray. So that's going to drive like that. And then I'm going to need an assist on these little gears. I just don't have the ability to kind of do that all by myself here, but I'm going to grab a pliers and see if we can't work it in like that. Two out of four. This is quite complicated design. I guess this is not the baitcaster to start working on as an example, I guess, huh? But I think we're back to kind of where we started, with the exception of this this dog here. So here's your hook spring for the dog. The dog fits in this direction. And I think I have to lift this assembly up now to get that seated down properly. There we go. So now we're inside that, and that will control the anti-reverse dog here. So we have two anti-reverse dogs. We have the one below. As we're spinning, this should work fine. And then we have the one above here with the eccentric spring that's going to close down on this. And then that's held in place by the bump guards in the case. So we have to bring our next piece in, which is the metal washer that sits on top. drag washer. Now these can be lubricated. I'm going to go do that. Use some Cal's Universal Drag Grease. These are the HT100 washers. And we have this cap washer that goes on top. And then it's time to take a look at the schematic now, because there's a couple more things going on here, right? So if we look at the schematic, we've just finished the cap washer, so now we have a tension washer, which is this one. And we have our ferrule. Okay, pause the video for a moment. I wanted to set up for the next set. We've got everything done now. Just as a quick recap, we've taken the main gears off. We've all lubed them up. We made sure that we tightened up on the anti-reverse dog. We made sure that the spring from the eccentric spring here is located into that little notch of that anti-reverse dog. There's only one more thing to do before we close that up, and that's to get these yoke springs back onto the inside of the reel. It'll keep pressure on the yoke when you go to do the release. And now, with any luck, we should be able to fit this down. It sounded nice and tight. Just let's give it a quick look. Yep, the seams are nice and tight around there. That's a good indication that we've done this right. I did pull off my glove, and I did take the 3 screws out for the case. This one's been running a little bit long in terms of a narrative, so I did take a little break there. And we'll get these screws back in. We'll go over to the other side of the reel, find out what's going on over there, once we're sure that this is working again. This is one of the most complex reels that I've seen in a baitcaster side. Those little transition gears, they're pretty interesting. I'm not quite sure how this reel works yet, Steve, and I can't find the manual for it. And I wish I could explain more to it. I'll just say that if it's working, wonderful. I haven't seen what's causing the trip switch to behave the way it is either, but maybe when we get over to the other side of the reel, we'll find a loose spring or something. You are correct, though. There are no replacement parts that I'm aware of for this reel. I did check mysticparts.com. They have information on the reel, but not much more. And it's a 1980s reel, so at this point in time, we are somewhere around 30 years plus in terms of when this reel was introduced. I believe it was discontinued in 1990, so that puts you at least at 30 years. And as much as we might want to complain about a manufacturer not supporting their product, I don't think it's reasonable for anybody to think that 30 years later you're going to still have repair parts for a reel that was not very popular to begin with. Okay, let's take a look now and see the stack. We have a collar. These are the ones I've nested inside here. And we had the shim washer. That's a tension washer, not a shim washer. And we have a little click mechanism here. Then we had our star adjuster go on. Oops. Not sure what this red dot is here. We have a red dot here and a red dot there. I'm not sure what that means. If anybody has this reel and can explain it, please let us know. We have 2 red dots on there for whatever reason that is. Next up then, I believe, was this little clip that's going to hold everything in place. This is a kind of a snap ring. I don't have the snap ring pliers. I'm just going to start and work. Spread it to the other side. There you go. We're in that loop. So that's done what it's supposed to do. Then we come up to the speed shifter. Next thing we have is exactly as we did here. You have the 2 tension washers come in on this. These are bell washers. They're not flat washers. Then we have the noise maker for the second one. Then there's a little washer that goes on top of that. That would be this one. And we have our speed adjuster. We have our handle with our little handle shim. Handle screw. Oops. And we'll give it a test drive, make sure it's working before we play around with any more parts of this reel. Oh, we're certainly working. Tighten down on the drag. Okay, the drag's working. I'm noticing that my click ring is not in on this adjuster. Just trying to find a way to push that down here. There we go. Now we can get our speed shifter in place. And I wanted to back that off because you can't tighten your handle until you get that adjuster down. Put our nut cap on, and we can be reasonably assured that we've got the gear side of this thing done. That's quite an effort there. Just clock down on that, make sure that we're spinning nicely, make sure that we spin on this, make sure that we have the release. We do. So everything on this side of the reel is done. That's a barrel of fun and a barrel of monkeys for sure. Now let's just go over the other side. Now I still don't see what the potential is for this switch being loose on the flipper. Well, it may have resolved itself with a little bit of grease there, because with the flipper switch over now, if I hold the flip, I can spin and do get a release. It does go. It is loose. I'm just kind of curious why that is, as is Steve. There we go. Cool. All right, let's go over to the other side then and just kind of do this. I'm expecting to see a mag in here. We'll be able to pull the spool out of this side, and we should be able to see maybe what's going on with that. So they didn't hide the screws in this case. A lot of these reels try to cosmetically hide screws these days. And I guess this is the good old 1980s. Didn't really care too much about that. They did blend them in. It's a nice design for the 80s. All right, let's see what we got now when we take this side off. To me, that should just, there you go. So this is our mag brake. Not much else going on there. There is a bearing. Let's go ahead and oil that bearing. Let's grab our spool. Spool is fine and clean, so we'll just go ahead and put a little bit of grease onto that. Okay, so we can button this up by taking the spool, inserting it, because there's a little plastic shield that goes over that spool. Just align everything. Put this piece back in. It's been a learning experience, for sure. And one more piece is just to pull the cap off of the worm drive here. Pull the pawl. Check the pawl to make sure that it's clean. In this case, it needs a cleaning, so make sure that the two grooves on the pawl are free of the grease. Check the pawl while you're at it. Make sure the teeth are nice and level. They are. And reinstall. Drop of oil. And then you can set that pawl by holding your finger on it and turning the reel to make sure that it's seated in the groove. Then you can come back in and put the cap back on. It holds it. I like to hand tighten these because you're never quite certain if you're going to strip them out, and these things break easily. There you go. All right, got that working. That's it. Wow. The Penn 2000. What a challenge. But Steve, you'll be ready to take it fishing. There you go. We got a lot more questions, I think, than we have answers, unfortunately. Nice spinning reel. Seems like the when you're in that flip switch, you're fine. I don't quite understand what holds that, but I think all I'm seeing is that we've probably just have a tension on there that's probably worn thin that's causing that to stay loose. All right, well, that's been a project. Thank you for sticking with me. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, please like it. If you want to see more, please subscribe. And if you have a reel that needs to be serviced or repaired, well, I'm always up for a challenge, as you saw here today. So this is Dennis with Second Chance Tackle. Again, thanking our first responders and hometown heroes and wishing everybody a great day. Please take care.